Some people do not argue when you hurt them. They do not raise their voice, demand an explanation, or try to make you feel guilty. They simply become quieter. Their messages get shorter, their eyes become harder to read, the warmth disappears from their voice, and one day you realize they are still physically present, but emotionally they have already left the room. Most people misunderstand this silence. They call it coldness, pride, manipulation, or emotional immaturity. But for many people, going quiet is not a punishment. It is a survival response. They are not silent because they have nothing to say. They are silent because somewhere in their past, speaking did not make the pain stop. Sometimes it made the pain worse. Today, we are exploring the psychology of people who go quiet when they are hurt, why they disappear inside themselves, and why the same defense that protects them can eventually leave them completely alone. When a person feels emotionally threatened, the nervous system prepares the body to fight, run, freeze, or submit. The quiet person often moves toward freezing and withdrawal. On the outside, they may appear calm. Inside, their body is trying to contain an emotional explosion. They want to say, "That hurt me." But another voice asks, "What if they laugh? What if they deny it? What if speaking makes everything worse?" So instead of explaining the pain, they close the door from the inside. This pattern often begins in childhood. Maybe they grew up in a home where emotions were treated like an inconvenience. When they cried, they were called dramatic. When they complained, they were told to be grateful. When they expressed anger, they were punished more harshly than the person who hurt them. Slowly, the child learned a brutal lesson. Feeling pain is unavoidable, but showing pain is dangerous. So they stopped asking for comfort. They learned to cry privately, recover quickly, and pretend nothing happened. The child did not become less sensitive. They simply became better at hiding the evidence. Years later, the same pattern appears in adult relationships. Someone breaks a promise, crosses a boundary, makes a cruel joke, or speaks with disrespect. The quiet person feels the injury immediately. But instead of saying, "That hurt me," they say, "It is fine." Then they begin to disappear. This is the first trap: silent self-protection. Emotional withdrawal works like pulling your hand away from a hot surface. The person senses danger and removes access. Silence creates distance, and distance creates temporary safety. But the safety has a price. The other person may not understand what changed. They may assume the quiet person no longer cares. Both people move farther apart, and the original hurt becomes buried under a second hurt, the feeling of not being noticed. This leads to the second trap: wanting to be understood without having to explain. Deep down, many quiet people hope that someone who truly loves them will notice the change. Their silence becomes a test they may not even realize they are creating. If you know me, you should know what you did. If I matter, you should ask. If I have to explain, maybe you never understood me. But even loving people cannot always interpret silence correctly. The quiet person waits to be understood. The other person waits for an explanation. Nothing happens. Then both begin creating stories. The quiet person thinks, "They do not care." The other person thinks, "They do not want me close." Eventually, both may act according to stories that were never confirmed. The third trap is emotional accumulation. A person rarely goes completely silent because of one small moment. More often, the final moment lands on top of many previous injuries that were never discussed. This is why the reaction can appear disproportionate. To everyone else, it was one comment. To them, it was the final piece in a pattern. Imagine a glass filling one drop at a time. Nobody notices the first drops, but eventually, one ordinary drop causes the glass to overflow. This is why some people seem to leave suddenly. In reality, they may have been leaving in small pieces for months. Every time they said, "It is okay," when it was not okay, another part of the relationship disappeared. By the time the other person notices, the quiet person may no longer be deciding whether the relationship can be saved. They may only be deciding when to stop pretending. There is another reason silence feels safer. Words make pain real. As long as the hurt remains unspoken, it can stay uncertain. But saying the truth forces them to confront what happened. "I trusted you, and you embarrassed me. I needed you, and you were not there." These sentences reveal need, attachment, and vulnerability. For someone who learned that vulnerability creates danger, Speaking can feel more frightening than losing the relationship, so they choose control. Silence allows them to decide how much of themselves is visible. But this control is often an illusion. The feeling does not disappear because it was hidden. It turns inward. Silence protects them from immediate conflict, but forces them to carry the entire conflict alone. This is where quiet withdrawal becomes self-abandonment. There is a difference between taking space and disappearing from your own emotions. Taking space means, I am overwhelmed and I need time before I speak. Self-abandonment means, my feelings are too inconvenient to exist. The first is a boundary, the second is a wound. Healthy silence has a return point. Unhealthy silence becomes a hiding place where resentment grows. This does not mean every hurt requires confrontation. The problem is using the same silence with everyone, in every situation, no matter how safe or important the relationship is. A strategy that once protected you can later isolate you. So what does growth look like? It does not mean forcing yourself to speak while overwhelmed. It means building a bridge between silence and expression. The first step is naming the shutdown. One simple sentence can prevent days of confusion. I am hurt, but I am not ready to talk yet. This protects the need for space while showing that silence is not the end of connection. The second step is separating the present wound from the history behind it. Ask yourself, what happened now and what did it remind me of? The third step is giving up the fantasy of being perfectly understood. Real intimacy does not mean another person can read your mind. It means both people are willing to translate themselves. Being understood often requires saying the sentence you wish they already knew. When you joked about me in front of everyone, I felt exposed. When you dismissed my concern, I felt unimportant. These words are uncomfortable because they give the other person a chance to respond. Silence protects you from a painful answer, but also prevents you from discovering whether repair was possible. That is the central conflict for people who go quiet when they are hurt. They want closeness, but their defense removes the information closeness requires. They want to feel safe, but create distance before safety can be tested. They want to be understood, but hide the evidence. The answer is not to destroy the defense. That silence once had a purpose. It may have protected a child who had no power, no language, and no safe listener. But the adult has choices the child did not have. The adult can pause without disappearing. The adult can choose who deserves access. The adult can say, "This hurt me," without believing that pain makes them weak. Sometimes the strongest response is not shouting, leaving, or pretending not to care. Sometimes it is remaining present long enough to tell the truth. If you recognize yourself in this video, remember this. Becoming quiet was probably not the problem. It was your solution to a problem that existed before you had better tools. But a solution can outlive the danger it was built for. The silence that once protected your heart can eventually prevent anyone from reaching it. So ask yourself one honest question. When you go quiet, are you giving yourself time to return? Or are you hoping someone will chase you into a place you refuse to describe? People cannot repair a wound they are not allowed to see, and you should not have to disappear to prove that you were hurt. If this video made you think of yourself or someone close to you, share your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe for more videos exploring the hidden psychology behind human behavior. Remember this, silence can protect your pain, but only honest expression can give that pain a chance to heal.